The janitor wasn't snooping. He was fixing a leak before dawn, per a rushed maintenance ticket. When he stepped into the executive boardroom, his voicemail recorder was still running. That's when two senior vice presidents whispered a plan to dump confidential files, crush the stock, and force the CEO out. William Carter froze. He had a daughter asleep in the staff lounge, and a mop in his hand, nothing else. But timestamps, door logs, and one clean audio file would soon decide if her company lived or died. William Carter stood at 6 feet 2 inches, his broad shoulders a remnant of his military engineering days, now bent slightly from years of pushing industrial cleaning carts through the endless corridors of Sterling Tech. At 36, he had the kind of face that made people comfortable, weathered but kind, with deep brown eyes that held stories he never told. His uniform bore no name tag, just a simple maintenance patch, because in buildings like this, janitors were meant to be invisible. William had mastered that art, moving through the 40-story tower like a ghost, fixing what broke, cleaning what others left behind, never complaining about the 12-hour night shifts that kept food on the table for the only person who mattered. Audrey Carter, 7 years old with her father's eyes and her late mother's curiosity, spent her Friday nights in the staff lounge on the 3rd floor, surrounded by coloring books and chapter books beyond her grade level. She had learned to whisper in these marble halls, to walk softly in her light-up sneakers, to never touch the expensive art or the executive elevator buttons. On nights when babysitters fell through, which happened more often than William liked to admit, she became his tiny shadow, drawing pictures of princesses who wore business suits and dragons who guarded office buildings. She understood, in the way children do, that Daddy's work was important even if nobody said thank you. Evelyn Sterling inherited the company at 34, younger than any CEO in the tech industry's cutthroat landscape. Beautiful in a way that made board members underestimate her. Brilliant in a way that made competitors fear her. She had transformed Sterling Tech from her father's failing hardware company into a cloud computing powerhouse worth $12 billion. But success had carved something out of her, the ability to trust, perhaps, or simply the luxury of showing weakness. She arrived before sunrise and left after midnight, her Bentley gliding past the night shift workers who existed in a different universe than her own. The pressure from shareholders had intensified lately, whispers of hostile takeovers and proxy fights keeping her awake even in the few hours she allocated for sleep. Sterling Tech stock had dropped 30% in 6 weeks, victim of manufactured rumors and strategic leaks that Evelyn couldn't trace. Someone inside was feeding information to competitors, timing revelations for maximum damage. The board grew restless, some members openly questioning her leadership, suggesting perhaps it was time for fresh perspectives. Richard Blackwood, the chairman who'd supposedly been her father's closest friend, had been particularly vocal in recent meetings, his support feeling more like surveillance with each interaction. He'd even suggested bringing in external consultants from his previous company, the same one Sterling Tech had acquired in a hostile takeover the year before, though nobody seemed to remember that detail anymore. The building itself seemed to pulse with tension, from the executive floors down to the underground parking garage where William began his shifts. He'd noticed the late-night meetings that didn't appear on official calendars, the way certain executives stopped talking when maintenance staff appeared, the new security protocols that seemed designed more to hide things than protect them. That particular Tuesday began like any other night shift for William. He clocked in at 11:45, checked on Audrey, who was already asleep on the worn couch in the staff lounge, her math homework scattered on the coffee table, perfectly completed as always. The maintenance ticket came through at 12:23 a.m. priority, one water leak in the executive boardroom, risk of damage to the Italian marble flooring that cost more per square foot than William made in a week. He grabbed his tools, took the service elevator to the 40th floor, and entered a world of mahogany and leather that might as well have been Mars. The leak was real enough, a hairline crack in the pipe that fed the executive bathroom, dripping steadily onto marble that was already showing water stains. William had been on a call with his sister about Audrey's upcoming school play, trying to figure out if she could cover his shift that Friday. When he realized the voicemail was still recording his ancient phone's quirk of continuing to record even after the other party hung up, he meant to stop it, but the pipe demanded immediate attention. He was under the conference table, wrench in hand, when the door's electronic lock beeped. 2 sets of Italian leather shoes entered, moving with the confidence of men who owned whatever room they occupied. William recognized the voices immediately. Marcus Webb, Senior Vice President of Operations, and Derek Harrison, Senior Vice President of Technology. They were Evelyn's most trusted executives, or so the company newsletter claimed. William stayed perfectly still, Not out of any desire to eavesdrop, but from the simple survival instinct of a maintenance worker who knew that executives didn't like reminders that the help existed. 6 a.m. sharp, Marcus said, checking his Rolex. 23 gigs straight to their servers in Singapore. Stock'll crater before anyone finishes their morning coffee. Singapore? Derek's shoes pivoted toward the window. I thought we were using the Cayman servers. Changed it yesterday. That new IT kid's been sniffing around the Cayman connection. Singapore's cleaner, plus they've got that trade announcement tomorrow, perfect cover for the data dump. Makes it look like industrial espionage from overseas. What about the fail-safes she installed? Marcus laughed, a sound like ice breaking. I wrote those fail-safes. Every security measure. Every audit trail. I can navigate around them. 20 years building this company's infrastructure. And she thinks her MBA makes her untouchable. William's phone continued recording, the tiny red light invisible in the darkness under the table. His hands had stopped moving on the pipe, every muscle locked in place. These men were planning to destroy not just Evelyn Sterling, but the livelihoods of 12,000 employees. People like him, people with children to feed, mortgages to pay, medical bills that never stopped coming. The beautiful part, Derek continued, is that we'll blame it on her. Security breach, under her watch. Classified data, leaked. Because she was too stubborn to listen to our recommendations. The board will have no choice but to remove her immediately. They stayed for another 10 minutes, refining details, discussing Swiss bank accounts and non-extradition countries as backup plans. William remained frozen, his back cramping, his phone capturing every word with digital precision that would hold up in any court. When they finally left, laughing about Evelyn's upcoming birthday party that she didn't know would be her last as CEO, William stayed under that table for another 5 minutes, making sure they were truly gone. His hands shook as he retrieved his phone, stopped the recording at 43 minutes and 17 seconds. The file size was larger than he expected, but the audio was crystal clear. William had learned in the military that evidence was only as good as its chain of custody, so he immediately uploaded it to 3 different cloud services, emailed it to an account he created just for this purpose, and saved it on a USB drive he kept on his keychain. He took photos of the door log showing Marcus and Derek's entry at 12:41 a.m., screenshot the maintenance ticket that placed him legitimately in the room, and even photographed the water damage that had brought him there. But as William finished fixing the pipe and cleaned up his tools, the weight of what he'd discovered settled on his shoulders like a physical force. He was a janitor, a nobody in this corporate hierarchy. Who would believe him over 2 senior vice presidents with spotless records and Ivy League degrees? The walk back to the staff lounge felt endless, each step echoing in the empty hallways like a countdown to a decision he didn't want to make. William stood in the doorway, watching Audrey sleep, her small face peaceful in the fluorescent light. Her drawing pad had fallen to the floor, the latest creation showing a figure that might have been him standing next to a tall building, holding hands with a smaller figure under a rainbow. At the top, in her careful handwriting, "My daddy fixes everything." William thought about his discharge from the military. Not dishonorable, but not exactly honorable either. He'd refused to sign off on faulty equipment that would have endangered his unit, going over his commanding officer's head, causing what they called disruption to the chain of command. The equipment was eventually replaced. Lives were saved. But William's career was over. He'd been right then. But being right hadn't paid the bills or brought his wife back from the cancer that took her while he was deployed. But this was different. This wasn't about him or his pride, or even justice in an abstract sense. This was about 12,000 families who would lose their income if Sterling Tech collapsed. This was about pension funds that would evaporate, about health insurance that would disappear for people with chronic conditions, about college funds that would never materialize. And somewhere in that 40-story tower, a 34-year-old woman was probably still working, unaware that her closest allies were sharpening knives for her back. William covered Audrey with his jacket, kissed her forehead gently enough not to wake her, and made his decision. The military had taught him about chain of command, but it had also taught him about duty. Sometimes the two didn't align. Sterling Tech's whistleblower system was supposedly anonymous, a secure portal that promised protection for employees reporting wrongdoing. William had cleaned enough executive offices to know that anonymous was a relative term in corporate America, but the system did have one advantage: it created legal timestamps and automatic backups that couldn't be deleted without triggering alerts to external auditors. At 3:17 a.m., William submitted his report. He kept it factual. No emotions, no assumptions, just what he'd heard and when he'd heard it. He uploaded the audio file, the photos, the screenshots, everything organized with military precision. The system assigned him a case number, WB 00743. He memorized it, knowing that number might be the only thing standing between his family and complete ruin. The legal department's response came faster than expected. By Thursday morning, while William was trying to catch a few hours of sleep before picking up Audrey from school, his personal phone rang with a blocked number. The woman's voice was professional but urgent, identifying herself as Sarah Chen, Senior Legal Counsel for Sterling Tech. "We need to meet immediately," she said. "Can you come to the building? I'm not scheduled until tonight. This can't wait. We've verified your preliminary information. But there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind that could make everything inadmissible in court. We'll send a car." The Blacktown car that arrived at William's modest apartment building looked absurdly out of place among the decade-old sedans and pickup trucks. His neighbors watched from windows as he got in, wearing his only suit, the one he'd bought for his wife's funeral. Audrey was at school, safe for now, though William had already called his sister to be ready to pick her up if necessary. The meeting took place in a secure conference room on the 38th floor, one William had never cleaned because it required special clearance. Sarah Chen was there with 2 other lawyers, the head of IT security, and a woman from Human Resources who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "The recording is clear," Sarah said, pulling up the audio file. "But we have a problem. Massachusetts is a 2-party consent state for recordings. Without their knowledge or consent, this could be thrown out." "I wasn't trying to record them," William said. "It was an accident." "The voicemail, we know. And that might be our salvation." Accidental recordings fall into a gray area, especially when they reveal criminal activity. But their lawyers will challenge it. "We need corroborating evidence, something that doesn't depend on the audio." The IT security head leaned forward. "I've been tracking unusual access patterns. Someone's been using administrator credentials at odd hours, downloading specific file sets that match what they discussed. If we can link those digital fingerprints to Marcus and Derek." "Do it," Sarah said, then turned to William. "But we need more. You're going to have to get them to incriminate themselves again, this time with full legal coverage." "What about Miss Sterling?" William asked. The lawyers exchanged glances. "We'll inform her when we have everything locked down. For now, we need you to continue your normal routine." "Can you do that?" William thought about facing Marcus and Derek in the hallways, cleaning their offices while knowing what they planned. "I've done harder things." They gave him a panic button, literally, a small device that would send his location and an emergency alert if pressed. They also had him sign enough confidentiality agreements to wallpaper his apartment, each one emphasizing the severe legal consequences of disclosure. William signed them all, noting how none of them mentioned any protection for him if things went wrong. The meeting with Evelyn Sterling came 24 hours later, arranged for Saturday afternoon when the building was nearly empty. William arrived to find her in the boardroom where everything had started, standing at the window with her back to him, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, the first time he'd seen her in anything but designer suits. "You're the janitor," she said without turning around. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am. They tell me you saved my company. I just reported what I heard." She turned then, and William saw something he hadn't expected. Exhaustion carved so deep, it had changed the geography of her face. 20 years, Mr. Carter. Marcus held my hand at my father's funeral. Derek was best man at my wedding, insisted on it actually. Said he'd been part of Sterling Tech's family since day one. Her voice cracked, slightly. They ate dinner at my table last Sunday. William shifted uncomfortably. Sometimes the people closest to us can't see past what they think they deserve. Speaking from experience, my CO in Kandahar saved my life twice, then tried to get my whole unit killed for a defense contractor payoff. Sometimes good people make catastrophic choices. She studied him for a long moment. This janitor in an ill-fitting suit who held her future in his weathered hands. They offered you money to stay quiet. No one's offered me anything. But someone will. Marcus has connections everywhere. When he realizes there's a leak, he'll try to plug it with cash or threats. Probably both. William pulled out his phone, showing her the backup confirmations, the uploads to multiple secure servers. I learned in the Army. Ma'am, always have redundancy in your systems. For the first time, something that might have been respect flickered in her eyes. What do you want, Mr. Carter? For your silence, For your cooperation. What's your price? I want to keep my job. I want my daughter to be safe. And I want the people who work here to still have work on Monday. She blinked, as if he'd spoken in a foreign language. That's all? That's everything. The plan they developed was elegant in its simplicity. IT created honeypot files, documents that looked legitimate but contained hidden watermarks and tracking codes. They modified access logs to show patterns that would only make sense if someone was systematically stealing data. Sarah Chen reached out to contacts at the SEC and FBI, laying groundwork for what was coming, and William continued his shifts, mopping floors and emptying trash cans while wearing a wire that uploaded directly to secure servers. It took Marcus less than 48 hours to make contact. William was cleaning the executive bathroom on Tuesday night, when the door locked behind him electronically. Marcus stood there in a $10,000 suit, his smile as sharp as surgical steel. William, right? You've been with us, what, 3 years? 4 years, sir. Good work. Always reliable. You have a daughter, don't you? Audrey? Bright kid? I've seen her drawings in the break room. The threat was subtle but clear. William kept his hand steady on the mop handle. She's everything to me. Family's important. That's why I wanted to talk to you about an opportunity. A friend of mine needs someone reliable for facility management. Pays double what you make here. Full benefits. College fund for Audrey. Interested? I appreciate the offer, sir, but I'm happy here. Marcus's smile tightened. Happiness is relative, William. You know, I've been here 20 years. 20 years. I built the infrastructure that makes this company run. Every system, every protocol, every line of code that keeps the lights on. Sterling's father promised me the succession. Shook my hand on it, right before the cancer took him. Then his daughter swoops in with her MBA, and suddenly I'm just another SVP. You know what that's like? To build something with your bare hands and watch someone else claim it? He stepped closer, and William could smell expensive cologne, masking something sour underneath desperation maybe, or just rage fermented over 2 decades. Sometimes, staying somewhere too long can be unhealthy, Marcus continued, his tone shifting back to threat. Accidents happen in buildings this size. Pipes burst, elevators malfunction, people slip on wet floors, little girls get approached by strangers at playgrounds. Tragic, really. How dangerous the world's become. The wire captured every word, transmitted it in real time to agents sitting in a van outside. William played his part perfectly, the intimidated janitor who just wanted to be left alone. Marcus left believing he'd delivered his message, unaware that he'd just added witness intimidation to his growing list of charges. But Derek was smarter, more paranoid. He had someone follow William home, a gray sedan that parked outside his apartment building for 3 days straight. On Thursday, Audrey came home from school crying because a strange man had approached her at recess, asking about her daddy's work, offering her candy if she'd share what daddy talked about at home. That crossed a line that turned William from reluctant whistleblower to avenging angel. He called Sarah Chen immediately, and within an hour, FBI agents were reviewing school security footage, identifying the man as a private investigator with ties to corporate espionage. Evelyn herself showed up at William's apartment that night. Something that had his neighbors talking for weeks. They threatened your daughter, she said. Not a question, but a statement of fact that carried the weight of personal understanding. They did. We're moving the timeline up. Can you get Audrey somewhere safe for a few days? William's sister lived 3 hours away. Far enough to be safe, close enough for him to reach if needed. He drove Audrey there that night, explaining it as a surprise vacation, though she was too smart not to notice his white knuckles on the steering wheel. Daddy? Are you in trouble? She asked, as they pulled into his sister's driveway. No, baby. Daddy's doing the right thing, and sometimes that's complicated. Like when you fixed that broken swing at school, even though it wasn't your job. William hugged her tight, memorizing the feeling of her small arms around his neck. Exactly like that. The trap was set for Friday morning, synchronized across multiple agencies and jurisdictions. William was scheduled to clean the server room at 5 a.m., a task that required him to be present while Marcus and Derek executed their final data transfer. The FBI wanted them caught in the act, devices in hand, no room for legal maneuvering. Everything started according to plan. William entered the server room with his cleaning cart, the familiar hum of thousands of processors creating white noise that covered any nervousness in his movements. At 5:23, Marcus arrived, followed by Derek 2 minutes later. They ignored William completely, just another piece of furniture in their corporate world. 12 minutes until the transfer completes, Derek said, connecting a military-grade encrypted drive to the main server. But then he paused, fingers hovering over his tablet. Wait, these checksums are wrong. Marcus moved closer. What do you mean? The file signatures. Someone's added tracking markers, watermarks. These aren't the clean files. Derek's voice rose slightly. It's a trap. William's hand tightened on the mop handle. The FBI teams were still 3 minutes out, waiting for the complete confession. If Marcus and Derek ran now, they'd lose everything. Derek was already pulling the drive. We abort. Wipe everything. No. Marcus grabbed his wrist. Think. If they knew, FBI would already be here. This is Evelyn's paranoia, adding trackers to everything. I can strip them out in 90 seconds. You sure? I wrote the tracking protocol. Trust me. They stayed, Marcus's fingers flying across the keyboard, stripping watermarks while simultaneously completing the theft. William watched the seconds tick by, knowing that every moment gave the FBI more evidence, but also increased the risk of escape. William continued mopping, his wire capturing everything, backup teams standing by in the stairwells and elevators. But then came the twist. Nobody expected a third person entered the server room. Richard Blackwood, chairman of the board, Evelyn's supposed strongest supporter. Gentlemen, Richard said calmly. Small change of plans. Marcus and Derek exchanged nervous glances. The FBI has been alerted. There's a whistleblower. We need to accelerate everything and pin it on someone else. Richard's eyes found William for the first time. Him. The janitor's perfect. Disgruntled employee, military background, access to secure areas. We found the stolen data on his personal devices, which Derek will now plant evidence of on the servers. William's hand tightened on the mop handle, but he forced himself to continue the charade. This was being recorded, all of it. Richard Blackwood had just confessed to the entire conspiracy. But sir, Marcus started, the original plan didn't account for surveillance. Someone's been watching, listening. Probably that bitch Evelyn herself. She's smarter than we gave her credit for. But it doesn't matter. We control the narrative. A janitor stealing corporate secrets to sell to competitors? The media will eat it up. Derek pulled out a second drive, this one labeled with William's employee ID number. The forensics will be perfect. His login credentials, his access card history, even emails from a spoofed account. No one will believe a janitor over the entire board leadership. That's when William made a decision that wasn't in any script. He pulled out his phone, ostensibly checking a message, but actually sending a pre-written text to Audrey's tablet. Remember what I taught you about emergencies? Do it now. Audrey, 3 hours away but wide awake and worried about her father, received the message and did exactly what they'd practiced. She hit the emergency broadcast button on the tablet William had modified, sending their pre-recorded insurance policy to every major news outlet, the SEC, the FBI, and most importantly, to every Sterling Tech employee's email. The effect was immediate. Throughout the building, phones began buzzing, alerts pinging. As 43 minutes of crystal-clear audio flooded the airways, Marcus and Derek's voices, planning corporate sabotage, echoed from thousands of devices simultaneously. Richard Blackwood's face went from smug satisfaction to ash gray in 3 seconds. What is that? That, William said, dropping his mop and standing to his full height, is the sound of truth. The door burst open, FBI agents flooding in with weapons drawn, screaming for everyone to get on the ground. William was already there, hands behind his head, following protocol while chaos exploded around him. Marcus tried to run, got tackled by an agent half his size. Derek attempted to destroy the drives, managed only to cut his hand on broken plastic before being zip-tied. Richard Blackwood, 70 years old and previously untouchable, was read his rights while crying about his heart medication. But in the chaos, Derek managed to trigger something on his phone, a dead man's switch, that would release the stolen data anyway, unless stopped in the next 60 seconds. The FBI tech specialist was still in the van outside, wouldn't make it in time. I can stop it, William said from the floor. I was a systems engineer in the Army, but I need access to that terminal. The lead agent made a split-second decision. Let him up. Cover him. William dove for the main terminal, his fingers remembering skills he hadn't used in years. The code Derek had initiated was sophisticated but not perfect. It had to interface with Sterling Tech's existing infrastructure. And William had been studying that infrastructure for 4 years. Every pipe, every wire, every connection. He found the kill switch in the redundancy protocols. A failsafe that Derek hadn't known existed because it was part of the physical maintenance systems, not the digital architecture. With 3 seconds to spare, William terminated the transfer, saving 23 gigabytes of secrets from being scattered to the wind. The FBI agents actually applauded, a sound that echoed strangely in the server room's sterile atmosphere. "You could have just let it happen," the lead agent said later, as they were processing the scene. "Would have made the case even stronger. Those files would have hurt innocent people." William replied, "I didn't do this to hurt anyone. I did it to stop people from being hurt." The aftermath moved with the strange time dilation of major events simultaneously fast and slow, chaotic and methodical. By market open, Sterling Tech had released a statement about the prevented corporate espionage, their stock actually rising on news that the threat had been neutralized. Marcus Webb, Derek Harrison, and Richard Blackwood were arrested on charges ranging from conspiracy to corporate espionage to witness intimidation. The private investigator who'd approached Audrey was picked up trying to board a flight to Costa Rica. But the media story that captured public imagination wasn't about corporate intrigue or billion-dollar betrayals. It was about William Carter, the single dad janitor who'd saved a company and thousands of jobs with a phone recording and pure courage. His military record was unsealed, revealing commendations for bravery that he'd never mentioned. His wife's death, his struggles as a single parent, his quiet dignity in the face of power. It all painted a picture of an American hero that transcended corporate drama. Evelyn Sterling held a press conference that afternoon, something she rarely did. But instead of the usual corporate speak, she told the truth, simply and directly. William Carter saved this company. Not the board, not the executives, not the consultants we pay millions. A man we paid $15 an hour to clean our offices had more integrity than people who made $15 million. He could have sold that recording for enough money to never work again. Instead, he risked everything to do the right thing. The offers came flooding in book deals, movie rights, speaking engagements. Security companies wanted to hire William as a consultant. Tech firms offered him executive positions based on his military engineering background. The media camped outside his apartment building until his neighbors threatened to call the health department. But William refused them all. When Evelyn visited him a week later, she found him in his apartment, helping Audrey with homework at a kitchen table that had seen better decades. "They tell me you've turned down $3 million in offers," she said. "We don't need $3 million, William replied, checking Audrey's math. "We need stability. We need peace. We need to know that doing the right thing matters. Then let me make you a different offer. Director of Facilities and Security Integration. It's a new position, one that bridges the gap between physical and digital security. You'd oversee both maintenance and help prevent what almost happened from happening again." "I'm a janitor, Miss Sterling." "No. You're an engineer who happens to be a janitor. And you understand this building and its vulnerabilities better than anyone. The salary is $90,000 to start. Full benefits, flexible hours, so you're always there for Audrey." William looked at his daughter, who was pretending not to listen while doodling in her notebook. "What do you think, baby? Should Daddy take a promotion?" Audrey looked up with serious eyes. "Will you still be fixing things? Just bigger things? Then yes. But we keep living here." "I like my school." Evelyn smiled, the first genuine smile William had seen from her. "Deal. But there's one more thing. The family day is next month. The company wants to honor you. Publicly. Will you come?" William hesitated. Public attention was the last thing he wanted. But Audrey tugged his sleeve. "Can I wear my princess dress?" "You can wear whatever you want," Evelyn told her. "Your father's a hero. Heroes' daughters get special privileges." The Sterling Tech Family Day took place on a Saturday in late September. The parking lot transformed into a carnival of tents and games and food trucks. William arrived with Audrey, who had indeed worn her princess dress, a purple creation with enough tulle to stock a craft store. He'd tried to convince her to wear something more practical, but she'd insisted that princesses could play carnival games too. The event was already in full swing when they arrived. thousands of employees and their families enjoying a perfect autumn day. William had hoped to blend into the crowd, but that became impossible when people started recognizing him. First, one person approached to shake his hand. Then another. Then, a crowd formed. Parents wanted to thank him for saving their jobs. Kids wanted to meet the man their parents called a hero. Evelyn found them near the ring toss game, Audrey determinedly trying to win a stuffed dragon that was nearly as tall as she was. The CEO looked different outside the office, wearing jeans and a Sterling Tech t-shirt like any other employee, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. "Miss Sterling," Audrey exclaimed, recognizing her from the photos that had been all over the news. "Are you the boss lady?" "I suppose I am," Evelyn said, crouching to Audrey's level. "And you must be the famous artist. I've heard about your drawings." Audrey beamed. "I drew you." She pulled a folded paper from her pocket, a drawing that showed 3 figures standing in front of a tall building. A tall man labeled Daddy, a small girl labeled Me, and a woman in a crown labeled Boss Lady Who Daddy Helped. Evelyn studied the drawing with unexpected intensity. "This is beautiful. May I keep it? Only if you help me win the dragon. Daddy's terrible at ring toss." "Hey," William protested, but he was smiling. It was the most relaxed he'd looked in weeks. Together, the unlikely trio conquered the ring toss, Evelyn proving surprisingly skilled at carnival games. "Boarding school," she explained. "We had nothing else to do on weekends." As they walked through the fair, Audrey between them clutching her dragon, employees kept approaching. But now the thanks were directed at both William and Evelyn. Him, for the courage to speak up. Her, for the courage to listen and act. The maintenance staff, usually invisible at company events, had set up their own tent with a banner reading "Maintenance Proud William Carter, one of us." "They love you," Evelyn observed, watching William get pulled into a group photo with his former night shift colleagues. "They're good people. They deserved better than what almost happened." "We all did." She paused, watching Audrey teach another child the proper technique for the basketball toss. "I never thanked you properly. Not for saving the company, for reminding me why it matters. I'd forgotten that Sterling Tech isn't about stock prices or board meetings. It's about them." She gestured to the families around them. "You would have figured it out." "No, I wouldn't have. I was too isolated. Too focused on the wrong metrics. You saw what I couldn't, that the threat was coming from inside. From people I trusted implicitly." They were interrupted by the announcement that the formal recognition ceremony was beginning. William tried to slip away, but Audrey grabbed his hand. "Daddy, they're calling for you." On the main stage, in front of thousands of people, Evelyn told the story, not the corporate version, but the human one. A father working night shifts to support his daughter. A man who chose integrity over profit. A janitor who saved a company because he understood that every employee mattered. "William Carter reminded us that heroes don't always wear suits or carry briefcases," she said. "Sometimes they carry mops and wear work boots. Sometimes they're the people we pass in the hallways without seeing. But character, true character, shines through regardless of job titles or pay grades." The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. William stood on that stage, Audrey's hand in his, feeling the weight and warmth of thousands of people whose lives had been protected by his choice. When they asked him to speak, he kept it simple. "I just did what any of you would have done. We look out for each other here. That's what makes Sterling Tech worth saving." As the afternoon wound down, William and Audrey found themselves back at the ring toss, this time just watching others play. Evelyn appeared with 3 cups of hot cocoa, sitting on the hay bale beside them like it was the most natural thing in the world. "So what's next?" she asked. William thought about it. "Tomorrow's Sunday. Audrey has a soccer game. Monday, I start my new position. Life goes on. That simple? The best things usually are." Audrey, chocolate mustache prominent, looked between the 2 adults with the calculating expression children get when they think they understand something grown-ups don't. "Mr. Sterling, do you like soccer? I've never been to a game. You should come tomorrow. Daddy always stands by himself because the other parents talk about boring stuff." William started to protest, but Evelyn was already pulling out her phone. "What time?" As the sun set over Sterling Tech's transformed parking lot, casting long shadows from the carnival rides and tents, the 3 of them sat on that hay bale, sharing cocoa and watching families enjoy a day that almost never happened. The investigation would continue for months. Trials would make headlines. and corporate security would be revolutionized based on what became known as the Carter Protocol. But in that moment, it was simpler. A man who fixed things. A little girl who drew dreams. And a woman learning to see beyond spreadsheets. 3 lives intersected by chance. And changed by choice. William Carter never sought fame or fortune. He'd stumbled into a moment that demanded courage and found he still had some left, despite all the times life had tried to beat it out of him. The recording that saved Sterling Tech now sat in FBI evidence lockers and backup servers, but its real power had already been released, proof that one person, no matter how seemingly insignificant, could stand up to corruption and win. Months later, when business magazines ran their year-end features on corporate scandals and triumphs, William declined every interview request. He was too busy with his new job, one that had him working with everyone from entry-level programmers to senior executives, building bridges between the physical and digital worlds that kept Sterling Tech secure. His office, and he still smiled, thinking he had an actual office, was strategically located between the maintenance department and IT. A literal bridge between 2 worlds. Audrey's drawings now decorated that office, including her latest masterpiece, a picture of Sterling Tech with a knight in janitor's clothing standing guard, a princess in purple beside him, and a queen in a business suit, watching from the highest tower. At the bottom, in her increasingly sophisticated handwriting, she'd written, "Everyone matters. Daddy taught me that." Evelyn Sterling kept that first drawing, the one from the family day, framed on her desk. When board members or investors asked about it, she told them the story how a janitor's integrity saved what all their risk assessments and strategic planning had missed. It became a touchstone for a new corporate culture, one that valued character over credentials, courage over connections. The last scene anyone remembered from that family day was simple. William pushing Audrey on a swing, her laughter carrying across the parking lot, while Evelyn stood nearby, looking more at peace than anyone had ever seen her. 3 people who should never have met, brought together by corporate conspiracy and held together by something more valuable than any stock option, the understanding that doing right matters, that every person counts, and that heroes can emerge from the humblest places when circumstances demand courage. Months later, in what had become a Thursday tradition, William sat in his office, teaching Audrey how to solder a circuit board. The door was open, he insisted on that, wanting everyone from maintenance to executives to feel welcome. "Steady hands," he coached, guiding her small fingers. "Just like drawing, but with metal and heat." Evelyn appeared in the doorway. No longer the untouchable CEO in designer suits, but someone who occasionally brought coffee for the security team and knew the janitor's grandchildren's names. "Room for one more student?" Audrey looked up, safety goggles making her eyes seem enormous. "Miss, Sterling doesn't know how to solder? Your dad's teaching me that there's a lot I don't know." Evelyn pulled up a chair, accepting the spare safety goggles William offered. "Starting with how things actually work around here." As William positioned the circuit board between them, explaining the basics of electrical flow and connection points, Audrey piped up. "Daddy says the building is like a big circuit board. Everyone's connected, and if one connection breaks, nothing works right." "Your daddy's pretty smart," Evelyn said, watching William's patient hands guide them both through the process. "He fixes things," Audrey said simply, then added with 7-year-old wisdom, "Not just pipes and stuff. Important things." The solder melted, silver flowing into place, creating a connection that would hold. Through the office window, the sun was setting over Sterling Tech, casting long shadows through a building that had almost fallen but stood stronger now. 3 people bent over a simple circuit board, a former janitor who'd saved an empire, a CEO learning to see beyond spreadsheets, and a little girl who drew pictures of heroes that looked remarkably like her father. The security footage from that day would later show them working until well past dinner time, Evelyn ordering pizza for the whole maintenance crew, Audrey teaching the CEO how to make paper airplanes from technical manuals, and William smiling, really smiling as he watched his 2 worlds finally become one.